Welcome to the Filipino American Women Project, a podcast show that shares stories and life lessons told by individuals living or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a fellow Filipino American woman, and I'm excited for you to join us. Let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Jen Amos here with the Filipino American Women Project podcast show. And as always, I have my co-host, Nani Dominguez with me. Nani, welcome back to the show.
Hey, everyone.
We are super excited because we have another amazing lady that we are interviewing on the show today. She is a homeschool mom of three, education blogger, and a virtual assistant for female online entrepreneurs. Michele Montierro is a second-generation Filipino American born and raised in California. Shout out to Cali girls. She was a former elementary classroom educator for several years. After leaving the brick and mortar, she continued her passion for education through homeschooling her children. In the attempt of finding Tagalog resources for her own family, Michele created her own activities for her children and decided to share her creations along with others she found through her blog, Philam Learners. She started blogging in 2016, hoping to share her insight and educational resources with other parents, educators, and children. Her love for technology and helping other entrepreneurs also inspired her to create her own virtual assistant business in 2019. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our absolute pleasure. Why don't we start with you sharing how did you hear about this project and why you chose to share your story with us today?
Okay, so when I started blogging in 2016, I was joining a couple of blogger networks, and one popped up on my radar. It was called FAB Network. I think it stands for Filipino American Blogger Network. And so I joined that and met a couple of ladies on there, and I believe there was a post. I know it was so long ago, a few years ago, but there was a post in there saying, hey, if you guys want to share your story, there is this, was it a podcast at that time, or it might have been, I don't even remember now, but there was a post saying if you want to share your story, you can submit it here, and it had a link to your, is it a blog, or, I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous thinking about this.
Oh no, don't apologize. That was 3 years ago. So it's actually really cool that you're sharing this because you know, I always tell people that this project started in 2016, and not that I think anyone wouldn't believe me, but it's great to have someone else say like, "Oh yeah, I remember when this project started." But yeah, it was right in that Facebook group, the Filipino American Blogger Network. Shout out to Elizabeth and Laura. They are really the ladies that are running the FAB network. And they're the ones that part of the reason why the Filipino American Women Project was able to get its first people to interview, because I was able to post in the group. And a lot of the people in that group were fairly willing to share their story because they were already bloggers, you know, they were already sharing their story. So it just, you know, it was just like the natural step for them. But yeah, that's so cool that you were part of that group and you saw that post from oh so long ago. I think that was like early January of 2017 is when I think, or probably December 2016, somewhere around there, December, January, in that little winter time of that time frame.
That's so cool. I was so really new to blogging too at that time. So I mean, I didn't even think about, oh no, that's too much for me. You know, I was still learning about the blogging network. So when I saw that post, I said, oh, that's cool that they're starting this. But I personally was not ready yet for, you know, joining up. But I thought that was neat that you're offering that to other women at that time.
I'm glad that we're talking now. Better late than never.
Yes, it's kind of cycling. It's going through. Yeah, and so I think also with me being more on Instagram now, so I'm learning more about other people and following other people. And I think it seems like we're all connecting with each other somehow. Mm-hmm. Like I'll see someone following someone else. I said, oh, I didn't know you know that person too. And so we'll follow each other and then we're somehow growing. It's like a web, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, so I also heard more about you through the Tagalog project. Her name's Clarice. I think.
Yes.
Did you guys interview her too already?
We did. Her episode is coming out soon, actually.
Awesome. Yeah. So she had mentioned, you guys, and I said, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. And so that's when my faint memories of a few years ago when it popped up on the Filipino American Blogger Network, that's when it popped up. I said, oh yeah, that's right. That's the same. That's the same people. I didn't even know it was the same. I know it's you guys.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Nani. Nani was the one that discovered Clarice. She actually, Nani, do you want to tell Michelle how you and Clarice met?
Yeah, well, I found her on Instagram. That's how I was introduced to her and the whole Filipino story time. So I discovered through her posts about story time that she was local here in the Bay. And my best friend, who is also mestiza, just had a baby who's 9 months now. So we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to take him and get him a chance to experience some story time with other Filipino kids and play around and stuff. And yeah, we had a lot of fun. So I ended up keeping in touch with her after that and inviting her to come on the show. And she did. And it was a really, really great interview. So yes, we love Clarice and plan on going back to story time again and again.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's so neat that she offers that. So I'm glad to see that they have that available. I mean, it's not really popular yet, but I feel like I see more story times available, or even just resources. Seems like it's been growing in the past couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really reassuring because I guess how would you identify me? I have immigrant parents and I was born American, so I guess I'm second generation. But growing up, I didn't really have something like that where there's like a children's meetup and you share children's books that revolve around like Filipino related stories. And it's just really cool how there are people today that are creating that type of environment for children. It gives me hope that if and when I have kids, I'll have those resources for them and have them learn their heritage like in that way. And hopefully, if they don't think I'm a corny mom, they'll enjoy listening to my podcast one day. We'll see. We'll see. That is if and when I have kids. Who knows?
What a great legacy you're leaving, though.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. I think I feel like for me, first and foremost, I'm just trying to find healing in what I guess I lacked growing up. I know that my family did their part in raising me and keeping me alive and getting me through college. But now there's parts of me that I wish that I also had. And only I know that. Only my family wouldn't have known that. And so part of the show is to fill in that void that I felt like I needed growing up and finding healing through it. So yeah. And if it helps anyone else, then awesome. And if my supposed future kids listen to it, awesome. So yeah, but anyway, enough about me. I want to, Michelle, this show is really dedicated to individuals who live or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about your family background and why you identify as a Filipino American woman today.
Okay, so I am the third of three children. I have an older brother and older sister, and so they were both born in the Philippines. My parents are from there as well, and they decided to come here to the United States for better opportunities. So they took my brother and sister when they were about 2 and 3, and then there was a large gap, and I was born. So there's a gap of 9 years after my sister. So my brother and sister are about a year apart, and then I came 9 years later. So I mean, if they came here as toddlers, then I was probably born around 7 years after. So I was the only one born here in the States, and they were all born in the Philippines.
Wow.
And yeah. So, but when they came here, they also brought Lola also so that she can help take care of me and my siblings. And so I feel like I learned a lot of Tagalog. Well, I would say most of it from her because she took care of me when my parents were at work. Yeah, and then but on the flip side, my parents also wanted us to be Americanized. So they spoke some Tagalog, but they also were trying to push more English because they didn't want us to feel left out, I guess you could say, or different than the students in the school. So that's why we were not fluent in Tagalog, my siblings and I. We knew enough to understand a lot because we heard it from them. We heard it from our Lola as well. But we also had, we had both cultures of Philippines and American culture as well growing up.
Wow. I'm curious, do you, if you don't mind me asking,
Mhm.
how's your relationship like with your siblings? Do you feel like there's a cultural difference between you and them? I mean, because one, there's the age gap, and then two, like they migrated from the Philippines. So how is that relationship like with you and your
Hmm.
siblings?
Well, we're pretty close. Well, I don't see a really huge distinction as far as culture goes because I think when they came
Mm,
here, they were so young.
okay.
So I think they had more of the American upbringing in that sense, I guess, because they only had a couple years from the Philippines. But we picked up the similar amount of culture from our parents and our Lola and our titos and titos. Just I would say this similarly, but with the
Yeah.
age gap, I mean, you know what? They actually both went to the Philippines when they were in college.
Oh,
My brother and sister. So the last time I went, I was when I was 4 years old. So they
wow.
probably have had more. They probably have a bit more knowledge about the culture and than I did. I do want to go back one day. That's the plan, but just yeah, just not right now. But yeah, they both went. I don't know why I didn't go. Never mind. My sister went when she was it was like a celebration of finishing school, so she went on her own, and then my brother went with my dad. And then I have really severe allergies, so I'm not really good with
Mm,
the heat and the environment, so I'm really sensitive. So I
yeah.
remember when I went, in every picture I was scratching, and I'm just really sensitive when it comes to those kinds of things. But I mean, I do want to go regardless of that, but I do want to take my kids too to see more of, to see their culture too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The mosquitoes in the Philippines love me a lot. I remember the last two times I went, this like second to last time, I remember our family had us like sleep in these nets, like you were kind of like
Mm,
wrapped in a net
yeah,
so that
I
the
remember that.
mosquitoes wouldn't go in. However, I remember waking up one morning and I had such a swollen forehead because mosquitoes got
Oh,
to my forehead somehow.
oh my
And
gosh.
so I kind of looked like Hunchback of Notre Dame. I had like just this protruding thing coming out of my
Oh
forehead.
no.
And then it was awful. It was awful. And then the last time I went, I was very diligent. I was like I came prepared. Like I had my bug repellent, I had essential
Mhm.
oils, like I had all the things. I was so prepared. And I was so proud of myself
Okay.
because one of my friends that went with us, I think it was her first time in the Philippines, she got like 20, 30 mosquito bites by the end of that
Oh,
trip. And
oh
I only
my gosh.
managed to get one. I mean, it was a huge one.
Oh,
I really hated it, but it was like just one. And it was like in the back of my thigh. So whenever I would sit, I'd feel this
oh,
swelling
ouch.
thing that I'd sit on. But one bite, one big bite compared to like the 20, 30 bites my friend got,
Mm.
I was like, yes, I mastered it like to the best of my ability this time. But it was because we really went to like this was after, oh my gosh, I have to look this up again. I think it's called Hurricane Yolanda or Typhoon
Mhm.
Yolanda. I need to look this up. Give me one second. I want to make sure I reference this right so I don't. Yeah, let's see. Hurricane Yolanda around is that on that time? You're gonna oh yeah, typhoon, sorry, so Typhoon Haiyan, also known as Typhoon Yolanda. So around that time, that was we went traveling around that time, and to kind of like help out, like assist in like rebuilding homes and checking out like just all the places that were affected by the typhoon. But we went to
Mhm.
really like rural places. I can't even say it right, rural places
I can't say that
where
word either.
yeah, where it was really humid, really humid. So obviously that would attract mosquitoes. And
Mhm.
so I remember before every time we would get out of the van, I would just start putting on bug repellent and like extra bug repellent. And so I was very proud of myself. But yeah, long answer. The Philippine, like the weather, like I can't do the weather either. I have like crazy allergies, and I feel like the next time I travel, I'm gonna have to be very like douchey about it, and like for lack of a better term, like find those places where like there's AC, and
Yeah.
I have to
Oh,
drive with AC in the car. Like I'm gonna have to be like that person the next time I go. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to just cover myself in mosquito bites. Not mosquito bites, but cover myself in like bug
okay. Well,
repellent.
Jen,
And
The lotion.
you're giving me lots of good tips for when I go.
yes, you need bug repellent. Okay, like no
I'm
matter. No matter what anyone says, you need it.
I'm gonna order some on Amazon right now.
Yeah. You also just a tip.
Are you going
like,
soon?
I'm going in January, so it's not soon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At least it's in the winter time. I think you'll be okay. And especially if you're going to be in the, metropolitan areas like in Manila, I think you'll be fine. But I also hear that garlic is like, you know how like supposedly with vampires, like when you wear garlic, they don't bite you. So like supposedly mosquitoes are the same thing. So if you like eat a lot of garlic or take like garlic supplements while you're there, I think that should help as well. So just some more tips for you. Good. Yeah, you can roast some garlic. Just have like a bag of garlic snacks as you go. And just like
rub it all over myself.
Yeah, rub it over.
Garlic.
Yeah, just apologize to your friends in advance if like your breath smells like garlic. But
yeah, because I'm totally that person that's like, oh my God, bugs.
Yes, yeah. I mean, no shame in that, because at the end of the day, like even if you come off as that person, at least you're protected, and you won't be that friend that is like irritated all the time because they have like 20, 30 mosquito bites on them and they were not prepared.
Exactly.
You can laugh at them. Yeah. So right. Mosquitoes. Yes. So if anyone is listening to the show and you have any more tips for us in terms of how to repel mosquitoes, please let us know. You can DM us on Instagram or you can email us. If you have an article about it or something, we'd love to have it.
Send it over.
Yeah.
I need all the tips.
Yeah, especially Nani, because she's traveling to the Philippines in January and we want to protect her. We want to make sure that your first experience, right? This will be your first time going to the Philippines.
It will, yes.
Yes. So listeners, help her out. Help out Nani. We want to make sure this is a great experience for her in the Philippines. Yeah. All right. So enough about mosquitoes. Let's go ahead and fast forward to today, Michele, and where you are in life right now. For people who are getting to know you for the first time, why don't you share what kind of like a snapshot of your life looks like, and more importantly, what keeps you busy and excited nowadays?
Okay, so in the bio you had mentioned that I'm a homeschool mom, so that is a top priority for me now. I have 3 little children. They are 9, 7, and 3. My 3-year-old's going to be 4 soon. But I started homeschooling them when my eldest was in TK, so transitional kindergarten, and she's just starting 4th grade. So 4th grader, 2nd grader, and well, not quite preschooler yet, but yeah, he joins along too. I also am a blogger, a Phil-Am learner since 2016. I actually went through a couple other blogs too, trying to find my niche. But I started off as a homeschool blogger, and then I decided to go the route of going towards American Filipino resources, just because at that time I was looking for resources for myself and for my kids, and because I didn't see a lot, I just said, okay, I'm going to start making stuff. And then I said, you know what, I can share this on the blog too, since there's not a lot out there. And so it somehow shifted towards that direction. And I haven't turned back since. I really like that. And it's just grown since then for the past few years. So that's been my passion project on the side.
All right. Jen Amos here, jumping into the middle of our show, as I always do, to remind you why this show is possible. So, at the end of every episode, I tend to say, if you didn't catch our guest contact info, don't worry, we'll have those in the show notes. Check them out. I worked so hard on them. You're welcome. Well, it's been brought to my attention that our show notes are not as easy to find as I thought, which is why starting summer 2020, the Filipino American Women Project is proud to be partnering with Captivate, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. Captivate is created for independent podcasters, designed from day one to help you to focus on audience growth and the expansion of your audio influence. One way that Captivate makes our lives easier as independent podcasters is by taking the guesswork out of making a website for your show. That's right, a website for your show. So listeners, starting summer 2020, finding our show notes will be so much easier. All thanks to Captivate. You're welcome, as always. If you're about to start podcasting or are getting burnt out from all the extra work of producing one, like building a website, consider a 7-day free trial, that's right, free, with Captivate by visiting thephilamwoman.com. That's the Philam, short for Filipino American Woman.com. Or, check out our show notes in the meantime, which is in the details section of each episode. Once again, you can visit thefillonwoman.com or visit the details section of this episode.
And then this past year, I learned about virtual assistants, and I think it just popped up on my Facebook. You know how when you click on something and then all of a sudden things pop up on your Facebook feed just because you clicked on something in a website? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was looking for work from home jobs, early on in 2019, and then so I learned about how to start your own virtual assistant business. I said, you know what, I can do that too because I'm pretty tech savvy. I've learned a lot through blogging, and so I said, yeah, I'm going to go for this. I can work from home, and so that sprung up. So I've been juggling a lot of different things. My husband just thinks, oh my gosh, I'm tired just hearing all the things that you're trying to do. So I am a person who just gets distracted by shiny object syndrome. Have you heard of that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And I told him it's a thing. I told him it's not just me because sometimes he thinks it's just me. But I said there's people out there doing the same thing. And so, but yes, this year I'm really trying to focus and narrow it down because I was trying to pick up so many other things. But yeah, but those are my three main facets that I'm working on, just juggling those throughout the day. And of course, taking care of the kids and our household. And every day is pretty much different. I try to block out time for the different parts of my life. So, I'll have a block of time during the day to homeschool and then I'll take a break so that they'll have some free time. And then that next block might be working for my clients for my virtual assistant business. And then the blog Film Learners, it's more of when I find time. It's more of like a every week or a couple times a month kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I used to be really more involved in it. I feel like I go through different seasons. So when I didn't start my virtual assistant business, I had more time for Film Learners, so I was devoting a lot more time to that. So it's kind of it take turns between them, but homeschooling is my constant. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it. I've been growing so much too from all the different things. And there's moments where I think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? There are moments where I thought maybe I should give up one, but then, I even made lists, what's the pros of this, what's the cons of this, and because I would go to bed feeling so exhausted, but then I think it's because I was picking up so many other things too. So then I had to just stop and reflect, okay, is this something that's bringing me closer to my goal? Is this something I'm passionate about? And I would hear really inspiring other podcasts too that were geared towards business. Actually, have you talked to or do you follow Anna Marie from Entrepreneurship?
Yes, she was one of the first people we interviewed on the show, actually. Oh, okay. I love her. Yeah.
So wonderful. Yeah. So I had a chat with her one time because I wanted to ask for some advice. And so, yeah, she was helping me narrow down my passions just because I felt like I was I was doing too much for myself and not leaving enough room for taking care of me and self-care. So yeah, it was really helpful talking to her and just meeting other entrepreneurs online and networking. And I have a couple of VA Facebook groups that I am a part of. And so, people are just bouncing off ideas, how they manage their daily life and how do they juggle motherhood if they are also parents as well. But yeah, I think I'm doing okay so far. And even with the kids too, since we homeschool, every year we sign up for lots of also extracurricular classes as well. And I get excited for those classes too, in addition to my kids. Oh my gosh, archery, this looks awesome. Let's try, this dance class. And so I feel like last year I really stuffed our schedule. And so just because we get so excited to try new things, and it's not a bad thing, but then I think this year I'm really trying to follow let's stick with just a few things that we really, really want to do. And then next year, if we want to try something different, then we'll swap it out instead of trying to do everything. I saw a meme on Facebook. It was a cartoon of Dory, from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can picture her just, oh, look at this, oh, look at it. I told the kids about it. I actually showed the picture. I said, okay, make sure mama is not going to be Dory this year, okay? For homeschool and for work. And so, yeah, it even happened. They caught me a couple weeks ago. I said, hey, look, kids, there's this new class coming up. I don't even remember now what it was because it was just out of the blue. And I said, look at this. Doesn't look like a really neat class. And then they said, Mommy. And he said, remember Dory? And I said, oh, yeah, you're right. We have our classes slate for this year. No more. Okay, we're done. Thank you for reminding me, kiddos.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So my husband, he's a lot like that as well. And the way you describe Dory, I describe him as squirrels. I'm like, honey, you're chasing squirrels. Like, that's another squirrel. Like, because he has the personality of a dog sometimes. Like, he's just like, single-minded. He's like, oh, shiny thing. It's from, it's from Up. So that's where I'm like referencing to, and all dogs are like, say squirrel, and then the dog just like, look up, and like look to the side. And it's funny because like he actually doesn't get that reference. He doesn't watch like Pixar or anything animated, but we have a dog that like loves chasing squirrels, or it's just like funny how I referenced it from that movie, even though he's never watched it. But now when he does a lot of things, sometimes he'll try to defend himself. He's like, this is not another squirrel. It's not another squirrel. I'm like, okay, if you say so. Well, I have a couple of things that I wanted to add to the things that you were saying. One thing that you have just shared that I think is very common amongst Filipino American women is that with your blog, we all know that in general, Filipinos are very adaptive, wherever you get placed, right? But I also think that people of Filipino descent are also innovative because since you couldn't find what you're looking for, you were trying to find a resource to provide these activities for your children to learn about their culture, you decided to create it yourself. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and applaud you for filling in that void for yourself. And I feel like that's what a lot of us are doing. Shout out to Anna Marie Cruz with entrepreneurship. I feel like we bring her up every episode. So like,
she's a powerhouse.
Yeah, free advertising for you, Anna. Shout out to you again.
She's like, I get it, Jen. You love me.
Yes, I do. Like, we followed each other for a couple years, actually. Like, if you listen to our episode, we talk about how we were like into stalking each other for some time. And then eventually we did meet in person. And,
cool.
She's amazing. And one of my goals to attend one of her retreats. I was planning on going to the one in Toronto that's coming up, but I have another conference to go to. So anyway, that's kind of my thought about you creating your blog. And I love that you found this void and you wanted to fill it. And I just think it's super awesome. The second thing is I think it's also like really awesome that you have started a virtual assistant business. Actually, shout out to Patricia. She's my virtual assistant. She's going to be editing this episode. So Patricia, if you hear this, shout out to you. She's actually in the Philippines and she's also a mother. And part of why she wanted to work with me is because she would commute. And Patricia, you can like message me later and tell me if I was wrong, but she would commute like an hour back and forth every day to work to take a telemarketing job. And so when she heard about an opportunity to work from home, she like quit her job. And fortunately, our relationship worked out because she works with me full time now. And she has been a real help. And it also just I feel good knowing that, I get to support a mother who can stay at home with her son and take care of her family the way that, she wants to and still earn a living. And so I feel like you're the first Filipino American like virtual assistant business I know, because most of the ones that I've connected with are in the Philippines, and I'm a big supporter of supporting virtual assistants. So I just think that's so cool that you do that. And shout out to you and kudos to you for creating your business. And the last thing I want to add is just about the whole like squirrel, inspiration, like how you're constantly like being like Dory. I think there's something beautiful about that. Like we need people like you in this world because you create opportunities for other people. When you find something new and exciting, you uplift the people around you and get them excited for that. Like my husband is a lot like that. He's always about like chasing these new ideas, and he may not always implement it, but he creates those opportunities for other people to create it. I don't think what you're doing is a bad thing. Sometimes you have to go through all of that. You have to juggle all these things because it's what gets you through the day. It gets you motivated and excited for life. Like even if you don't end up like finishing it, it doesn't matter. It's not about finishing it. It's about the excitement of doing something new. And I think anyone can like debate on that, but I think there's beauty in that, and wanted to say that.
Oh, well, thank you for putting a positive twist on it. Yeah, I was beating myself up for it, but yeah, I really like the way you put it in that framework.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had a lot of projects in the past that just failed. And I actually thought the Filipino American Women Project was going to be one of them, because I went on a year-long hiatus like in 2018. And there was other projects that didn't come up to the surface. But sometimes it's not about focusing on if you'll complete things. It's about like focusing on what inspires you. And who knows, it's like a garden. Like you water your favorite plants and you see which ones end up thriving, and then you pay more attention to that. But anyway, I'm doing my best to defend you for being story, and I hope I've accomplished that.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm a little embarrassed that I've been completely ignorant to this whole virtual assistant business world. I've been an executive assistant for the past 10 years, basically my whole professional career. So obviously that's something that I should be very knowledgeable about and into, but I'm not. So I would love to hear more about how you got into that and how it runs and how it works.
Okay. So,
and Jen, I didn't know that you had one either.
Yeah. Hi, Patricia. She's going to edit this.
They also have virtual executive assistants. Do you do yours virtually or I guess brick and mortar?
Yeah, I have like a regular, like traditional 9-to-5 job. So I'd definitely be interested in virtual opportunities.
Yeah. I've heard of so many opportunities. They're always looking for virtual executive assistants. So I can message you later with some. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Well, I know that there are blogs out there. There are courses out there on virtual assistants. That's how I got into it too. So I've joined several different Facebook groups I can share with you as well. But yeah, I mean, it's so broad. When someone asks, what do? It really just depends, because there's so many different tasks you can do online, right? I mean, you can help organize the processes of a business. You can manage their online stores. You can do transcription, podcast editing, right? Data entry. I mean, you name it, video editing. Anything you could do virtually is pretty much it, or social media, managing someone's social media, creating graphics for them. It just really depends. I think that's what's beautiful about it, is because you can bring in your strengths and also what you're passionate about too. You don't have to just do a certain type of skill. And then you can also be very broad in general and just say, yeah, I could do all these different things and show what you offer. Or you can be an expert in one field and just say, yes, I'm going to focus only on Facebook ads, and you'll be the Facebook ad expert, and other businesses can connect with you that way. So it's been really good so far. I think one of the hard things about it, and it's not even just having a virtual assistant business, but just being a business owner, is just the marketing piece. I think that's one of the hardest parts, I think, for me, just because I'm an introvert by nature. And so going out there, even just announcing that I was a blogger to begin with. I've had my blog for 3 years, right? And I barely told people, outside of my really close circle, I barely told people this year, even my virtual assistant business. I think just pressing publish on a post, oh, okay, I started my business. I was, I don't know, my heart was beating so fast, and why is it so scary? But I think just it's because you're putting yourself out there, and you're not sure what are they going to think. But then it comes down to, are you happy for what you're doing? Mm-hmm. And who cares what they think? I have to switch my mindset, because I think I'm always thinking about what do they think and what are they going to say? Are they going to judge me? Or, and it's just things that, I didn't think I was going to go down this route. So I told you in my bio that I was a former classroom teacher. So to go from classroom teacher to where I am now is very different path, right? So yeah. I think I never thought it was going to be this way, but, life has led me down this path, and it's totally fine. I think just being out there on social media is scary, just because you don't know what people are going to say, and some people can be pretty mean too, where you wonder, wow, you had the time, you made time out of your day just to put that comment on someone else's post.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's what I think too when I read those comments. Yeah, and I love that you brought up the fact, I guess, the reality that this is an opportunity where you can really kind of mix both your strengths and your passion. I think that a lot of people, at least in my case, sometimes feel like whatever you choose as your 9 to 5 is supposed to be what you're chasing your dreams and doing something that you're passionate about. But for someone like me who didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do or what I was passionate about that I would want to spend every day 9 to 5 doing, that was also going to pay the bills, just kind of once you get into a certain routine in life, it's hard to break out of that and start a new path. And for me, my blog also for me was, I went through several iterations with it until I kind of found a niche of what I wanted to focus on as well, like you had said in the beginning. And now in finding this podcast and doing these interviews, I'm considering this, as well as my blog, more of my passion project. And now I don't feel so unsettled and restless in my day job. So I love that you're creating those opportunities for people.
Oh, and I'm glad I'm glad this show makes you feel less restless, Nani. That means a lot. I like
it does.
It gives you something to look forward to. I would highly, highly recommend, I like how this has become like a career like meeting now for Nani, but I would highly recommend that you look into virtual assistants, Nani, because, you know, at least from my experience, having worked with virtual assistants don't have to be client facing for the most part, very much behind the scenes, kind of like being a ghostwriter. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of people out there who love being in the forefront, kind of like my husband. We always call him the dog and pony show because he's the one doing the speaking engagements and getting featured in things and doing interviews. But he has people such as myself that work behind the scenes and, you know, we don't meet with a lot of people, but our roles are just as important, if not more important. I like to say that I'm the puppeteer sometimes because if it wasn't for me, I wouldn't be able to just run about and do what he does. But no, highly, highly recommend it. And I commend anyone who runs a virtual assistant business because it's, you really get to dictate your hours with it. Of course, you need to find your own clientele and stuff like that, but there's a lot of resources, and I'm more than happy to share that with you as well, Nani, in my experience of how I found virtual assistants and stuff like that. So you have people here to help you. And
I feel embarrassed that I've been excluded from this world for so long.
I think it's really boosting this year. I think it's growing a lot. Well, at least from or maybe it's because I started just networking more, but I'm just seeing it more now too.
Yeah,
don't be embarrassed though.
Virtual work in general is becoming so popular. Even in my day job, in my regular job, I do most of my work remotely. You know, I'm always traveling. We have a million different offices and I'm traveling to and from all of those on a regular basis. So, and then I work from home kind of whenever I want to. So it doesn't really make sense. Seems like that's the way that the world is moving in altogether. So I like it.
You think of all the scary things that's happening nowadays, or at least that media tends to blow up on. Yeah, you kind of don't want to leave the house. And also with like traffic and just like places that are just really high in terms of like expensive real estate, like people want to live in cheaper places and they don't want to commute as far. Yeah, a lot of people are very unhappy at their jobs. And a lot of people who have full-time jobs who quote unquote have it all are still looking at the other side, wondering what life would be like if they were able to dictate their schedule. And so I think we've kind of, we've well beyond past the Industrial Revolution, where it's not just about getting a 9-to-5 job anymore. Of course, it's still there. Obviously, it's still good. It pays the bills. But I do believe there are more options today, and more people are doing it today than ever before. When it used to be that way before the Industrial Revolution, when you did have the bakers and the smiths and family businesses, that used to be a thing before America like blew up with the railroads. And I can't believe I'm sharing this right now. This is totally my husband's influence on me. But yeah, anyway, we're back in that era where you could start your own business again. I mean, my husband and I work completely from home as well. I mean, except if we have to show up to conferences and stuff like that. It's not easy. It's definitely not a sexy life. I don't think I've washed my hair in the last couple of days because I haven't had to see anyone. So, but
yeah, exactly. You can work in your pajamas and no one will know.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it is a big sacrifice. So, I'm not trying to romanticize it in any way. Like it's a lot of work to do it. And I think, Michele, you're very fortunate to have, a spouse support you while you're doing this, and you get to like explore like what excites you and stuff like that. Like it's nice to have that support.
Yes, definitely.
In order to do that. So, but anyway, really highly, highly recommend you look into it. And for our listeners as well, if you are a virtual assistant or are working virtually, we'd love to hear from you and your experience. And who knows, maybe you'll inspire Nani to look more into this type of lifestyle, because it's not a bad one. It takes a lot of work, but it's for the lifestyle you get out of it. I think it's completely worth it. So
yeah, thank you for all of that.
Yeah. Also, I love, Michele, that you said you're an introvert, because I know I don't sound like it, but I'm an introvert as well.
Oh, okay.
This is part of why I love podcasting and I love social media, because I think in general, like with extroverts, they like to, introverts like to, in general, think before they speak. And extroverts like to think out loud. They just kind of just blah, just say whatever's on their mind. And I think the internet is really a place for introverts to thrive, because you can take your time articulating yourself, and you can edit things before you put it out there. And even when you do put it out there, you can take it down, and you can revise it. And I think, have you heard of that book? It's just called Quiet. She also has a TED Talk. It was a really, really awesome TED Talk. She's been featured in a million things. But this book gets into the scientific study of introverts and how they're such a necessity for our society, and how we need to make more space for them. Like, for example, introverts don't thrive well in like an open, what do you call those? Like open offices where like, you kind of like you're sitting next to someone and there's no privacy. Like they don't, introverts don't thrive in that kind of space. Anyway, really good book. Highly recommend it for anyone that is an introvert. And I just, from one introvert to another, I think you're awesome.
Thank you. I know I feel like I'm more outgoing online, but yeah, it's just exactly what you said, is because you can edit yourself. You can think about it first before you actually submit your response. You're not just out in the open. I get some anxiety when you're in a group scenario and they're having open discussion, and then I feel like I'm retreating because I need time to just think and process.
Yeah. My husband and our roommate, they like to do things together. So they're both veterans, and in the military, they're so used to like working in a unit and stuff like that, right? So when they want to work, their idea of working is like being in the same room together, and brainstorming, being in the same room together. And it's just so like, I could only stand so much of it. Like when I am with them and we are brainstorming, and when I do feel like I'm stuck and I need to think, I've learned to just literally say it. I would say to them, guys, give me a minute. I'm thinking. Like I have to say that, and I was like, give me a minute, stop talking. But before, I would just kind of shrink and make my way back to my office and like maybe get back to them with my thoughts later. But it's very often that like introverts' opinions don't get acknowledged as much, because the extroverts' opinions tend to be a lot louder and they tend to respond quicker. But if you read the book Quiet, that's not always effective, and their answers, extroverts' answers, are not always right. So just so you know. Yeah. So we talked about mosquitoes. We talked about virtual assistants. Last part of the interview. All right. So my most favorite part of the interview is sharing a life lesson and story told by a Filipino American woman. And so, Michele, for your story, for your life lesson, you have shared with us that communication is such a powerful tool to not hold onto your emotions when it comes to resolving problems with people who are close to you. And sometimes we are asked to remain silent out of respect, but it may be hurting our own emotional well-being. So, Michele, I'd love for you to elaborate on that and share maybe what aspect of your life led you to that life lesson.
Okay, so I've been telling my kids, communicate all the time, because I grew up where there's a hierarchy of respect, right? So for your elders, you need to respect them. by staying quiet, not talking back. And I understand, obviously, you don't want to say anything rude back to anybody, right? Mm-hmm. But in the end, the elders always had the final say, so you kind of just had to take it. Kind of say even just anything, even if it wasn't a rude word that you're saying back to them necessarily, just the fact that you've made the effort to, argue, maybe not argue back, but to kind of negate what they were saying, automatically they get upset and you're not supposed to talk back, right? Mm-hmm. So I grew up trying to stay quiet, holding everything in. And I mean, I don't want to put down that parenting style as well, because I know that's just how they were raised as well, with their values, but it's just not something that I necessarily agree and want to implement. So I don't want this aspect of the lesson to be, you're not supposed to be doing that to me. I don't want them to think that mm-hmm. I am saying you parented me in a bad way and, you scarred me for life or anything like that, because they really loved us and they did everything they could to support us. And same thing with my Lola and my Lolo too. I think part of the Filipino culture is respect for elders, like how they say po at the end of sentences. They also have the act of mano, where you bless. Have you heard of that with the hand? And
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so mano po, yeah. So they have different traditions to do things like that, to not say anything rude back to them or not to speak back to them, which I understand. Having my own kids too, I want them to respect me as well. But I also do want them to have a voice. So I don't want them to see me as someone who, whatever I say, you must do. I don't want to portray that type of relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And so I want them to know that you are welcome to express your thoughts. I mean, obviously, there's no name calling, or you can't be disrespectful either. But I don't want them to think I'm disrespectful. I feel like it's an equal, what's the word? I want us to have equal say in our communication. I want it to be more open. Of course, there are things where that my husband and I, if we tell them something, if it involves anything with safety or health, there are things where there's non-negotiables, but I also want them to be able to ask why, to communicate things like that. Or if we're upset, I'm really trying to break out of the whole silent treatment, because I grew up with that as well, where if someone was upset, they kind of just held it in. They weren't able to express it very freely because we felt uncomfortable doing so. People would just kind of held on to their feelings. I don't know if it was a sense of pride or we're not supposed to say it because they thought it was going to be disrespectful too. So we just kind of, I would just go off to the corner and just, have all those emotions, and I didn't know what to do with it either. And so I just went, as a teenager and as a young adult, I said, okay, I'm not going to do this to my own kids one day, because they said this is just too much emotion to hold in. And I wanted something different. So I didn't want us to have that type of relationship either, where they didn't feel like they can open up to me, but they can, because I feel like when you don't have that open communication, then they might tend to hide something. So I don't want them to feel like they have to hide something from me.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think based on what I know about Jen and what I've heard you say so far, I think that we can all attest to that personally in how we grew up in our households, not being able to, A, communicate, B, express ourselves. And even now as adults, well, at least for me, I still don't feel like even all this work that I'm doing on myself, I try to extend obviously to my family, and it's just the way, it's just not reciprocated. Even 20 years later or however many years later, we still as a family collaboratively deal with things the same way, which is sweep it under the rug, don't talk about it, eventually act like it never happened.
Yes, definitely.
And I also hate that. I feel like that's created so much internal struggle for me personally, and it's also spilled out into the way that I operate in my own relationships, in my own life outside of my family as an adult. And that's really hard to backtrack from, and it's really hard to learn how to open up that way if, you were never shown that. And it's commendable that you are trying so hard to do the opposite with your kids. And it's amazing that you've created this whole blog and the whole Philam Learners deal to help facilitate that. So I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I wanted to add one more thing. I had a friend, she was a single parent of 4 kids, and she would tell me, like, she's like in her like late 70s now, and she's still like vibrant and running a business and being really cool and stuff. But she was telling me that she raised her kids to speak up for themselves and to speak their mind, because even if they would rebel against her, at least she knew that her kids could stand their ground and they could defend themselves and speak up. And she chose that over them being submissive or just overly obedient. And ultimately, like what you said, Michele, hiding things. I think just like, yeah, like that was a lot of my life, was hiding things from my family, because every time I would try to be curious and ask questions and share my thoughts, they were either ignored or they were shunned or they were condemned. Or one of my first cousins, who will never listen to the show, he would deliberately yell at me, telling me to shut up. And it would make me cry every single time. And I don't think I've spoken to him in I don't know, probably 15 plus years. It's been a long time. And it's still, I still don't find it in myself to come back to those relatives and speak my mind, because no one's gonna stand up from that. That was another thing too. When I felt like I was in a very unsafe place, I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel safe. And so, yeah, it's an awful position to be in, to the people you need to turn to and think they're going to defend you, and then they remain silent. Like it's very traumatizing, and it really you carry that throughout your life, and you wonder if you're like, I remember telling one of my friends who's, she's Caucasian, and I think in general, like most Americans are very, like, they speak their mind, they speak their mind, even if they're not, like, especially if they're not feeling well or they're unhappy about something. And I remember telling her, I was like, I don't think I'm really good at identifying if something wrong is happening to me. So I would tell people, I'm like, this is my situation. Am I in the wrong here? Is this bad? Like, should I be in the situation? And many times people would say, Jen, that is so bad for you. Like you need to get out of that toxic relationship. But it only took me to like really tell people about it and ask them, to tell me if I'm tolerating something, for me to realize that I was in a very unhealthy situation. And I think that's kind of the unfortunate consequence of not being able to speak up for ourselves and to remain quiet, because these issues happen and we're taught to internalize it. And then you wonder why there's so much, why we grew up so messed up, later. And so I just think it's awesome that what you're doing, Michele, is you're trying to set those boundaries and set those rules, but also like give your kids a space, find that balance for them to speak up, because it's so important. And they're going to be so grateful that you created that space for them later in life. Because even today, like, I can say anything to my mom, and I can be very transparent with her, but it's also because I feel like she doesn't care what I have to say. Like, I feel like she doesn't give me an opinion. She's just there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my mom. I think my mom, she used to watch my Facebook Live shows. So if she's listening to these shows, I love you, Mom. But, it's like you really feel like there's something that's missing. And so I'm just really, really awesome, like what you're doing as a mother for your kids.
Thank you. I'm trying. I mean, that was just a mental note I made to myself when I was younger, just because I didn't want them to go through that, where several years you're just keeping things in. And I see what it does to other people's relationships too, even just not my own. But when I see relatives stay upset at each other, and because they're not voicing their opinion, but they hold on to it for so long, and you just think, wow, life is just so short to hold on to those really big feelings and just to keep that toxic emotion inside when you could have had a conversation or more, just depending on how deep the emotions are running, to have some closure, to talk it over with someone and then be able to move forward, whether, you're going to have a happy relationship or you just will choose to part ways, but at least you have that resolution. You're not carrying it with you for so long. And, people say, well, you turn out fine, Michelle, it's all good. And so I said, yeah, fine in different aspects of my life, yes. But there's still just areas like emotions and being able to express how I feel is just, that's an area where I think, I want to work on that. Yeah. And I want to make sure that my kids don't have to work on that part.
Right.
Too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just tell them, try to communicate. I said, you don't have to even talk right away. It's okay to go off, calm down, collect your thoughts, but as long as you come back to each other and are able to express, or even not to each other, but to us. And same thing with me yesterday. I forgot what, actually I'm embarrassed to say why. But it's one of those things where I just had mom rage, just a typical mom rage moment. And then I think to myself, oh my gosh, I got so upset. I think I just, when things just pile up, just one little thing after the other, and just one thing just set me off. So just, it all just came out, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt so bad after that. But whenever that happens, whether I have a mommy tantrum or if the kids have a tantrum, we always try to reel them back in, like, hey, let's talk about what just happened there. Yeah. I said, wow, our emotional backpack just got really full. I heard that term, emotional backpack. It's from Dr. Laura Markham. But she says, we carry on backpacks. And so if it gets really full and stuffed, it just, think of this like a little explosion, or it just gets so full that just everything spills out of it. All of your emotions just spill out. So that's just what happens. So I said, we are humans. We have emotions. We can't control that. We're not going to be happy 100% of the time. And so I said, it's normal. I said, I apologize for that outbreak that I just had there, but I said, I just wanted to let them know what I was feeling. And then, we worked out from there. I tell them I have certain buttons and triggers of what they do that push my buttons, and they know. And I said, okay, so if you do this, then that's going to set mommy off. Or if I do this and this upsets you, I want you to be able to tell me so that we can not do that. And if we do, we need to try to work on it or apologize for it. But yeah, because we don't want to have these reoccurring issues if we're just going to keep holding it in and not expressing how we're feeling. Yeah, so I think so far it's worked. I mean, so far, they're still pretty young, but they tell me everything, I don't think they hide anything. They just tell me everything about their day, little details, which is great. I want it to keep that way. I hope it stays that way in the teen years, because I know the teen years is very different. But I want to set this foundation now so that when they do reach their teen years, adult years, that they can continue feeling like they can tell me everything.
I heard before, I heard this through I used to do intensive coaching 2 years ago. And I remember they said something like, your kids act out in their teenage years because of how you raised them when they were younger. And so I think the foundation, not that I'm a parent or a psychologist or anything in any way, but I think what you're doing is going to set them up for success where they would want to talk to you. It sounds like you're really trying to create that for them. I think about why I was so closed off to my mom is because my mom was so closed off to me, So as I got older, I just became more closed off. And I was just thinking, I think the way how on the surface we look presentable, we look like we have everything together. I feel like it's a lot like a volcano, right? So a volcano is very beautiful and majestic to look at, and it's like slumbering. But like a lot of us, later on in our adult life, we end up exploding, erupting. And that's our emotions, because we've kept it in for so long. And then just like earlier, when, you started opening up, that's a result of all that pent up stuff that led you to this point. And so if we can just have more eruptions, if that makes sense, we'll have less of them, and they won't be as huge, because I just think that's what it takes. And especially if you had to like keep things in for so long at a young age. I think,
right. You need to release it at some point.
Exactly. And then to just normalize releasing it pretty often, and daily and consistently, because we're always going to have stuff, and we always need to speak our minds. And I think that we're at a place now, at least I think all three of us, where we could communicate, how we feel, and not just let that be pent up, or at least know the tools to start opening up and sharing these kinds of things. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that that's huge what you just said about normalizing the release of that, because we all feel that for whatever reasons. And it's just, I think we live in a world where we think that people expect us to be so put together all the time and to have it figured out. And really, we're all just in it together, figuring it out together. And a lot of us don't have the answers, and we shouldn't be ashamed to show that or to tell people that, and essentially reach out for help, because it really is all about normalizing that release. And what I wanted to say, Michele, to you was that I think the most important thing for your kids right now is for them to be able to watch you work through that. When you talk about either they have a tantrum or you have a tantrum, that kind of sends the message to them that we're the same, that mutual respect that you want with your kids. I think that's what that creates when you show them that you're human, and sometimes you do lose it, and there are things that trigger you and set you off, and that's just a part of being a human, and that they're not wrong if they feel that way too, but that there's a way to communicate it and release it, and for them to watch you work through it yourself, even in your own instances with them. I think that's the perfect way to teach them what to do with themselves when they feel those things.
Yeah, and I also want them to know it's not disrespectful to say I'm angry, I want them to be honest about that. It's okay if you feel mad, tell me why, and then to go from it. But by all means, it's not means I'm a perfect parent, and we don't have perfect relationships, but I think we're working through it. And it's funny because when you say the word normalize too, I think I like that phrase, because in the beginning, when I would have my mommy tantrums, I would feel so guilty. Oh my gosh, why did I yell at them for this? Or, why did I use those words? So afterwards I would read a blog, a parenting blog or a book, and say, okay, well, I'm going to do this from now on. And I'd write it down so that next time, I can do that and it will be much better. So, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, in the beginning, I would be so mad at myself for doing that. But then I had to tell myself I'm human. So, I mean, I can only do so much, and I have feelings too. I can't be the perfect person for them, but I can show them how I'm working through that too. So, and they see that, and yeah, they know. They can tell by my face. It's okay, Mama needs to process some thoughts there. And we've tried different techniques too. We'll make posters on the wall. If we get mad, this is what we think or see. Our recent thing is to channel your inner Olaf. Olaf from Frozen.
Yes.
So they think of this happy, bubbly guy. Channel Olaf so that the big snow monster doesn't overtake your emotions, kind of thing like that. Or let Olaf kind of tame the monster. You don't have to be happy-go-lucky, but Olaf needs to help come in and help tame before that monster overtakes the whole town.
Oh,
so, yeah. But yeah, the other day though, when I lost it, I said, "Whoops, looks like the monster came out. Sorry, he just came out too fast for Olaf." So we laugh about it afterwards, right? So they said, "That's okay, Mama. Sometimes you just feel so hard so fast." I said, "Yeah, exactly." So I mean, but at least it's out, and at least we're able to talk about it afterwards, and I was able to point out why I got mad, and then it worked out. So it's all good.
Well, Michele, I think to me it sounds like, because Nani and I, we don't have kids. We have fur babies, but we don't have kids. I feel like being a parent is the most true test of your character. And so I just want to applaud you for how intentional you are with raising your kids. I think for the first generation Filipino Americans, it was about survival for them and help fighting for their kids, but you are in a position where you want to do that and more. You want to you want your kids to be able to open up to you and be transparent with you. And it's really cool how self-aware you are and how you want to create that type of environment for your kids. And so I just want to applaud you for that. And I think it sounds to me you're doing a great job because of how thoughtful you are and the way that you use metaphors for your kids when you do have your mommy tantrums, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Michele, before we wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts for us and our listeners?
I just want to say thank you for all that you do for the community. I mean, just having this outlet for people to listen to all your different talks and topics. I mean, I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts when I'm doing chores, putting the dishes away. It's just something nice to hear conversation from others, or if I'm trying to sleep, I should be sleeping, but it's just something I want to listen to. So thank you for that. And it's just because I work from home too, and I'm home a lot. So just being able to hear other people's voices, and I mean, not to say that I'm, we're hermits or anything. I don't want to put that picture out there, but just to see, just to hear, other Filipino American people and what they're going through, and just to hear you guys bounce off ideas. And, sometimes I'm nodding along and say, oh yeah, that's so relatable. And I know when you had interviewed Elaine, right, from this Filipino American podcast, right? Or no, this Filipino American Life. Yes. That's it. TFL, right? Yes. Oh my gosh, that was really relatable. And so it was just really powerful hearing what you guys are talking about with anxiety too. And I said, oh my gosh, this is really helpful and reassuring to know that, we're not alone in how you're feeling. And so, I mean, and I didn't have to go out there to find people to have a conversation, just because, as an introvert, I feel more comfortable in that situation where I would hear your talk and then I could respond to it through a message or through email instead of me participating in an open forum conversation with a bunch of people, and I would not be able to say it because I would feel uncomfortable, or I wouldn't be able to communicate that back. But just hearing conversations, it's just really enriching, just hearing other people's stories and what people are doing out there in the community. It's really inspiring too. So I really appreciate that you're doing this for our culture and our generation and future generations, however long this podcast will be live and out there.
I always like to say that for as long as I'm Filipino, this project will exist. So, and who knows, maybe it'll take on a different form in the future, just like how it used to be Facebook Live. Now we're doing podcasts, but I will always be curious about our heritage and our history and what that means for us today and moving forward. And it's just nice to do this with other women, doing it with Nani, and just learning and growing together and realizing that we have a lot more in common than we think, but we're also all individually unique. And therefore we can all just hopefully individually be proud of who we are and respect each other a lot better and understand each other a lot better. And even if someone rubs you off the wrong way, to understand that they didn't mean to do that to you, but it could have just been a cultural difference, cultural, like just a different way, a different approach that we're not familiar with. So thank you for saying that. And, this is, I always say this show benefits me too. It's as a fellow introvert, it's my way of socializing. And when I edit the episodes, it's very therapeutic for me. It's like I get to relive the conversations so much that I haven't even had a chance to really listen to other people's podcast shows because like most of my time is invested in doing the show and editing it and producing it. But it's very, very fulfilling for me. And I'm glad that it's benefiting so many people, and we're starting to see people reaching out and wanting to be on the show as well. Nani, you have any closing thoughts?
Thank you, Michele, for sharing. And yeah, I thought that was a really good conversation.
Yes, I agree. And for anyone that wants to reach out to you, Michele, and learn more about Philam Learners, how can they do that?
So I have my blog, philamlearners.com, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Philam Learners. And then if you're curious about the virtual assistant business, or you need a virtual assistant for your business, my website is keendrivenheart.com, and it's at keendrivenheart on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Very cool. And if you did not catch that, listeners, that will be in the show notes. So Nani, Michele, I want to thank you both so much for your time and being present with us today on this call. And for our listeners that are listening, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this is another episode that has inspired you or motivated you to reach out to us to possibly share your story and your life lesson for other people to hear and for generations to come. With that said, I hope that we look forward to speaking with you all next time. Nani, Michele, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.